in music, certain events happen together far more frequently than you would expect, given the overall statistics. I'll give you a quick example. If you take a harmony class in the US, one of the few things you may remember after a year or two is that 4 goes to 5. Okay. Even though, technically speaking, it hardly ever does. Because you'd have parallel, right? But people are speaking generally. They mean, 4 going to 5, 7, or something else. But anyway, that's what you might learn. But if you counted things in 18th century music, you would find that 4 in C major, with great regularity, goes to 1/6. And in fact, it's almost a lock that it's going to do that in certain situations. So sort of like the word disaster in the context of it's a blank waiting to happen. That 1/6 chord following the 4, that is so common and such a collocation of events that, I called 4 events a printer. It's related to other patterns like the double cadence, et cetera, et cetera. But it turns out, based on James Simmons' statistical analysis of 18th century music, it's, I think, the second or third most common pattern in the entire repertoire.
Wow.
So if one didn't take a theory course, but instead just studied Mozart, okay, the answer would be that 4 goes to 1/6 when it's in a printer. You see, Roman numeral, if there is a theory of Roman numerals, and I don't think there is really, but if there were, it would be based on global statistics. Okay. But that's really a fallacy. People pay attention to local statistics, to the statistics within contexts, rather than to the global whatever. In English, H follows T with fairly high probability. All the words like the and that and this and those, whatever. But when someone says a stitch in time saves 9, they're never tempted to put an H after the T in time. It wouldn't occur to them to do it. Because in that context, H after T is impossible. But globally, H after T is highly probable.
Didn't you have a very good analogy of collecting useless data with like traffic lights or something like that?
Oh, I don't know. I hope I did, but I don't remember it.
It had something to do with if you sat down and just watched traffic lights. Or
yes. This brings us to harmonic functions.
Okay.
There's 3 harmonic functions, according to Hugo Riemann. And, the idea is that the play of these 3 harmonic functions is somehow aesthetic and beautiful and making musical masterpieces. But instead of chords, what if we were talking about 3 lights on the traffic signal? Yellow, red, and green. And we move them around. We turn them on and off at the speed of an allegro movement by Handel. And so the lights would go green, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, green, yellow, green, red, green. And we would watch that for a half hour. And if it's true in music, it ought to be true in vision. So would we be inspired? Would this be like listening to the Messiah? I don't think so. It's a very strange and peculiar idea. Well, I think one of the questions was partially answered by James Simmons in his dissertation of 2017 or 18, and that was, if you he took Neapolitan solfeggi, which are melody and bass pieces. He took 300 of them and tallied all the patterns that are isochronic, in other words, that come at equal time intervals. And again, that's important because it's not note to note that most of these patterns occur. And sure enough, practically every pattern in music in the galant style shows up in the top 10 of the statistics. So there's lots more to do there, but I think it's possible. I mean, he was quite sophisticated. This is not just like counting and then taking the average. But I think he did show that, yes, statistically, these are the most common patterns. It wasn't just like a nightmare that I had, and just writing down my fantasies. I think that's one thing. I think another thing that would be quite different would be